You know, when I was a child, they would often show people, and some of y'all are old enough to remember when they would show a lot of commercials and shows about the poverty in third world countries. How many remember that? You would turn on the television and see scenes of the ravages of poverty and starvation. And I can remember being innocently enthralled with the images that I saw. And on one evening, I can remember in particular watching television with my cousin Vondra. She was the oldest of all the cousins. And I noticed a woman crying, and she stood almost naked, really, and had a big stomach. And I thought to myself, and I actually said, why is she crying, Vondra? You know, she's going to have a baby. She ought to be happy. Only to hear my cousin tell me that I was confused. The woman was actually starving to death. And though it looked the same as pregnancy, the outcome was going to be totally different. You see, it's dangerous to be confused about the state that you're in. Oh my. This scripture that we're looking at this morning presents an oddity just like that for us to take note of, and a potential confusion, if you will, a situation that would tempt you and I to be confused. For you see, there is a garden and a graveyard right there together. Now that seems nasty to me. It's odd to me that you would have a garden and a graveyard. How can you confuse the two, Bishop? I don't think that's an issue. Well, I don't know. Even though they are so different, they are strikingly similar. Yeah, a graveyard, think about it now. It's a place of death, finality, endings. It's a place of permanence, decay, dissolution. But then a garden, on the other hand, is a place of purpose and change, process, development, multiplication, and life. It seems like it's so different. It really does. It seems like even though they're juxtaposed in the text, it seems like they're worlds apart. But I declare unto you that they both involve some of the same things. Yeah, they both involve darkness. You don't plant a seed and sit it on top of the soil. You got to put it in the dirt just like you do a body. Oh, I wish I had somebody. Yeah, there's darkness. There is being enclosed. There's being constricted. Like I told him, like this robe is doing my throat. Y'all know I don't like dressing up. Come on now. There's isolation in both of them. The dirt, the cold, the breaking down of the flesh. I wonder, do you know the difference between a graveyard and a garden? God lifted this verse up in my spirit because there's a danger that you may confuse a graveyard and a garden. Good God, help me today. Yeah, there's a difference between them. See, if you get it wrong, if you mess around and confuse the graveyard with the garden, or the garden with the graveyard, you will sabotage your hope, or you will become hopeless when victory is just ahead of you. Touch your neighbor and say, don't confuse it, don't do it. Here's what I mean. There's not one of us in here today that has escaped being mistreated. Yeah, I know you don't want to let anybody know because you got your Easter outfit that you found on sale yesterday. Y'all ain't going to say nothing. Ain't going to call you out, John. You understand? Each of us has a situation that's caused us pain and disappointment and heartache. I mean, so much hurt, that thing hurt like, I heard you. You said hell. I heard you. I was going to say it hurt like death. I want somebody to get sanctified. It hurt like death, not hell. It hurt like death. It was a dead situation. It was a dead relationship. Maybe it was a relationship that failed. Maybe it was a friendship that had gone berserk. Maybe it was craziness on your job. But you and I have to know where to put situations like that. You got to put dead situations in a graveyard. Hunch your neighbor and say, watch this now. You see, if you don't properly handle the kinds of toxic issues of your life, and if you don't handle the dead statements and the dead events and the dead memories, you might mess around and put them in your garden. Touch your neighbor and say, dead things go in a graveyard. See, if you mess around and put some of the dead things of your past into the garden of your heart, what you're going to do is begin to grow decaying fruit, deformed fruit, defective fruit, diseased fruit. In other words, if you don't get rid of the memory of being molested, I know y'all don't want to be real. You just want to come to church and show off your hat. But if you don't deal with this stuff, you're going to put it in the garden of your heart. You'll begin to grow stuff like jealousy, like malice, like anger, like prejudice. Somebody of another race did you wrong. And instead of burying that thing, instead of realizing that was the enemy, instead of putting it in a coffin in the dirt, you planted it in your heart. Now every time you see a person that is of that color, you done grown some hatred for them. But take your neighbor and say, don't be confused. Don't put it in the garden. Don't you hear what I'm saying, y'all? You got to be careful. If the boy cheated on you, that's a dead thing. I'm sorry, I'm getting too personal. If he cheated on you, don't sit up and cry year after year. Bury that thing. Put it down in a coffin. Dig it down in the dirt. Seal it up with some nails. Throw some dirt on top of it and say ashes to ashes, dust to dust. I ain't crying over you no more. Say yes. That goes in the graveyard. That goes in the graveyard. You can't confuse the graveyard with the garden. Yes, sir, dead things have to be put in graveyards, not gardens. But that's all right. Maybe you got confused with that, but you ain't by yourself. The devil also got confused. He confused the graveyard. Watch your voice, Reverend, with the garden. Apparently, the devil forgot what Jesus said. Jesus had already likened his death to being planted down in a garden. Jesus had already brought it up in John chapter 12. I wish I had somebody in here. He said, except a corn of wheat fall into the ground and die. You said, wait a minute, Pastor, you said die. Well, let me just put it to you from another translation. He said, except a seed of wheat fall into the ground and be planted in the soil, unless it becomes dead to the world and goes through the process of shedding its flesh, it'll never grow and be what it should be. You see, that's what happened. That's what happened when the devil laid hostile hands on Jesus. The Bible said God so loved the world. I'm going to tell you, you're going to get with me, you better come quick. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. Jesus came down to live so he could be our representative. And the Bible declares they nailed his hands to a cross. They nailed his feet to a cross. They put a crown of thorns on his head, and then they hung him high and they stretched him wide. He hung his head and died. He died till your sins couldn't damn you. He died till your past couldn't hold you. He died till your body had to be healed. Say yes. Say yes. And the devil threw a party. The devil figured, I got you. I'm going to bury you. You're dead. But hunch your neighbor, say, he wasn't dead. He was being planted. For he told them, I will rise again. Go ahead. Nail me if you want to. But I will rise again. They planted him in a tomb. But early Sunday morning, he got up. It was a garden. Say it. I came to preach about the confusion that you and I generally have when we go through dark times. When we go through hellish situations, we have the tendency to confuse our situation and think we're in a graveyard, think we're in a permanent state, think that we're dead, but that ain't really I don't know. But maybe somebody knows what I'm talking about. It seems like a grave. You're trying to believe that you're planted, but it seems like a grave. It seems like it because it's dark. It seems like it because you're isolated. It seems like it. Touch your neighbor and say, I feel dead. It doesn't seem like it's going to get better, but I come to tell you, it's going to get better. Don't believe it. The devil wants you to think you ain't going to never come through. The devil wants you to think you're by yourself. You're all alone. Nobody cares about you. But I heard the Bible say that just like Jesus came out of the grave, he was brand new. He had a new name. Touch your neighbor, say, I'm coming out. I'm just planted. I'm not buried. I'm planted. And when I come out, I'm coming out brand new. I'm coming out ready to live. I'm coming out. Say it. Say it. High five somebody and say, I'm being processed. I'm just in a garden, but I'm breaking through, coming out, coming up. Yes, yes. Praise him. Praise him. If you're in a garden, pray.